If you're interested in a genuine transformation, less chaos, more intention, then you're in the right place. Meal prep is about living better. It's about the real, tangible impact on your day-to-day life. Join me while I make a week of nutritious, healthy meals that no one would ever consider boring. I like to really change the flavors of what I make week to week so it's easy to enjoy it day after day. On the menu this week, blueberry oatmeal for breakfast, stuffed shells with extra protein for lunch, and roasted miso chicken and cabbage with sesame noodles for dinner. I wanted this video to be really intentional about showing you the process that I follow when I meal prep, which doesn't necessarily mean that I'm finishing one meal from start to finish, then I go to the next meal start to finish. So here you can kind of see, you'll see me jump around a lot, but that is so realistic to how I actually meal prep. The process isn't like do breakfast, then do dinner, then, or, do lunch, then do dinner. It's like start the sauce, put this in the oven, this goes on the stove, boil this water. It's just all over the place, but that's something that really doesn't faze me anymore as a chef. And I think there's a lot of value in learning how to multitask in the kitchen and to switch from thing to thing. So that's what I wanted to show you guys here. Please comment. Let me know if that's helpful for you to see, the way my brain kind of works when I'm cooking this much and cooking this many things at once. And if it's not helpful, we can, go back to a more linear process. But I feel like this is really valuable. But let me know in the comments if this is helpful for you. All right, I'm gonna go over what I've done so far with my sauce while I've been talking over it. So I'm making my tomato base sauce for my stuffed shells, and I wanted to add in some protein here, so I really want them to be like protein forward. So I started with some ground turkey. I added in mirepoix, the onions, the garlic. Now I'm gonna add in my tomatoes, so I'm using fresh tomatoes. I also, of course, used olive oil. I didn't say that, but of course I used olive oil too. You saw that. But I'm using fresh tomatoes here. I don't always use fresh tomatoes, but I had them this time, so I decided I was gonna make my own sauce from scratch. But look, a jar is great. Jarred pasta sauce, amazing. So if you don't have time to make your own sauce from scratch, then, please use a jar. Make your life easy. And speaking of making your life easy, definitely when you're meal prepping, something I wish I knew when I started was to have a better plan. So a lot of times I would feel really overwhelmed if I just started and, I didn't have really like an order I wanted to go in. I didn't think about the time one thing would take versus another. So definitely a hot tip is, to have a plan and understand, what works for you too. Like, are you not someone who likes to cook a lot of things at once, or are you someone who just wants this to be done as fast as possible? I'm team 2. I want this to be done as fast as possible. So I'm always trying to think about what do I need to get started first. And for me this week, that was this sauce. I knew that this sauce needed time to simmer, and it would be something I could cook in the background while I continued making other things. In addition to the tomatoes, I added tomato paste, and you'll see me add some water here too. I didn't measure how much water I added, but I'm just really looking for texture and of course taste too. I'll also add some salt, and then I'll put the lid on and let it simmer. Now that my sauce is going, it's stuffed shell time. I was so excited to do this. I haven't made this for meal prep ever before. I thought it was super interesting and just something different. So, any combination of like tomatoes, garlic, onion, and pasta is good for me. That's, I guess, my Italian side coming out, my Italian heritage. But I wanted to do something different and interesting. So stuffed shells it was. I just had no idea how many of them would fit in the containers. And I also used this time to check that none of the shells are broken. Now that I have my shells sorted, I'll give my sauce a stir, and it needs a little bit longer here. So I gave it a stir, can kind of see what we're working with here, and I'll let it go a little bit longer. Lid back on, and I'm moving on to my filling. This was difficult to do with one hand, but I drained my frozen spinach after it thawed, and I'm gonna start on my filling. For my filling, I knew I really wanted to make this really nutrient dense. So I've got my nutrient dense sauce already, my red sauce, and I knew I wanted my filling to be nutrient dense too. So I've got my spinach I drained, I've got cottage cheese, and I've got ricotta. I love, if you've followed me on this page for any amount of time, you probably know I'm obsessed with cottage cheese. This is my favorite cottage cheese too, from Trader Joe's, by the way. If you have access to a Trader Joe's, definitely try it. I've tried all the cottage cheeses. I think this is by far better than any of the other brands, in my humble opinion. But I'm willing to change my mind on that, so let me know if you like it. But I'm going to add in that whole container here, and then I'll add in, I had a half of a container of ricotta cheese, so I'll add that in here too, and I'll also add in my spinach. And note too is that I really had no idea if this was going to be enough filling, but I felt like it was close enough, but figured I could always, I had some extra, I didn't have any extra ricotta in the fridge, but I did have extra cottage cheese in the fridge, so I figured, you know what, this seems like this will be enough. But I think that's one of those things that's just kind of something, you know, I've learned to do really well, which is just kind of estimate and guess. And there are definitely times when I have not made enough of something, and I'd always rather make too much than not enough, because nothing's more frustrating to me. But alas, anyway, got that mixed up, yay. And again, just a guess that that was enough, so fingers crossed. Hope it works out for me. So next I'll add in my spices here. I'll add in a ton of garlic, like, looks good to me. I mean, I'm a garlic girly, so you know, the more garlic the better. And I'll also add in a little bit of nutmeg too, so always love to, you know, smell that warmth. And a lot of people add nutmeg into lasagna, so I figured this would be good in stuffed shells too. And don't forget, Lisa, I had some of this chili crunch that was, you know, hanging out in the fridge, and I felt like it was time for it to do something, so I'd added a little bit in here. I don't really think this particular chili crunch tastes like anything, or that it added anything, but you know, I just want to use it up, so nothing goes to waste in this house. So added that in here too. Next up on the spice journey, salt and pepper. Classic. Definitely need salt to bring this to life. Pepper adds some depth. So salt and pepper next, and then once I have it mixed, then I'm gonna add it into the fridge, and because I'm not ready to fill the shells yet, so I'll add it into the fridge, and then I'll come back to it when I'm ready to use the filling. I'll grab my bowl that I used for the spinach, and I'll put all my shells in. It'll just make it that little bit easier to transport it over to the stove, so I can add them into the boiling water. At this point, I'll turn my oven on. I'll preheat it to 400 degrees. So sorry, y'all. I forgot to film adding the water in for the pasta to boil, like the boiling water. So please forgive. But yes, so while that's going now, because I'm waiting for my water to boil, I'm gonna cut up some of my carrots I'm gonna use for the other meal, and I'm trying to decide here, I guess, how to cut them, at what type of carrot shape I want. So I'm gonna chop up these carrots, and I'll put them in this in my large Cambro. I don't know if I've gone on a rant of how much I love these containers for meal prep and kitchen things, but I love these giant containers that you see pictured here. I can put a link if you guys want a link to them too, but obsessed. So, yep, time to chop carrots. I hadn't made it very far into my carrot chopping journey when I realized my water was boiling, so I'm throwing my shells in. I'll give them a quick stir, set a timer, and I'll get back to chopping my carrots. That is the end of the carrots. They're all chopped. Yay! I definitely thought I had enough time to chop that cabbage, but remembered, gotta do the shells. So I'll get out my olive oil spray, my sheet pan to stack my containers on, and I'll get that started. So once my shells are done and boiling, you can probably see the timer going here. It's almost done, racing against the clock. I'm gonna get these on the sheet pan so that once those shells are done, they can go into here, and I can start the shell stuffing process, which was super fun, by the way. So yes, get that. I'll get those sprayed with olive oil, and then they'll be ready for the cooked pasta shells. All right, look at these beauties, al dente and gorgeous. We're gonna drain them. I drained them off camera. Sorry, y'all, it's really hard to do this one-handed. And wow, look at these beauties. They're stunning, truly. I'm going to take them out of the colander. I don't want to let them sit here. If they do, they'll definitely stick to each other, and then I'll have a whole other set of issues. So I'll take them out of my colander, set them onto my cutting board, and let them cool off just for a minute while my sauce just finishes cooking. We'll finish off the sauce by adding in some fresh basil, giving it a big nice stir, and we'll come back over to the shells on the counter. And now that we're set, bringing the sauce over. It's hot, it's heavy, it smells amazing. I'm so excited. I love red sauce. So look at this. Beautiful. So delicious. So we'll give this a stir, and I'm going to start spooning it in. I decided that spoon, not gonna cut it. So I'm gonna grab a measuring cup. This isn't because I'm portioning out or measuring. This is just because it's really gonna make my life 10 times easier to use a measuring cup to get this in here. So adding that in first. So I'll add in my sauce in the bottom. So again, I already had that olive oil spray. And I'll add in my sauce to all my containers, and the sauce will also cool off as I do that too. Now that my first layer of sauce is down, I'll grab my filling out of the fridge. It's nice and cold. Look at that beauty. And honestly, I was so excited to stuff these. It just sounded so fun, so different. I haven't done anything like this for meal prep. I've made these, like I said, but just so fun. So you'll see me here. I'm gonna do my best to stuff and fill and stack them into the containers, and really it was so fun. So very big process, very tedious, but how cute is that? So stacking those in, and I'll get to work on doing that. Woo! Y'all, we made it. Thanks for hanging in. I know that was a long process. I'm also still playing around with speeding these things up or cutting or cropping them, so comment and tell me what you think. Do you like to see everything sped up so you can still see the process? Please, y'all, this is collaborative. Tell me what you want. I will bring it to life. All right, back to cooking. I'll finish this next layer of red sauce on top, and I'll meet you guys back here in a second. I'm sure you can see from my face, I was so excited. They just looked so great, and it just felt like a fun meal for me. So I had so much fun putting this together. All right, so now I'm grabbing my next ingredient out of the fridge. I'm gonna add some of this, quattro formaggi on top. So a mix of 4 cheeses. I'll sprinkle some of that on top too. And also, please get if you get sauce on anything, definitely anything like the container or the tray, the sheet pan, definitely just wipe it off, make your life a little bit easier so you're not cleaning up just one less little mess to clean up. So I'm adding my cheese on here and yeah, just taking it to that next level, you know? All right, time to get these in the oven. The Lone Ranger going in first, and I'll follow with the sheet pan one. Please note, this is very heavy. I am actually a strength training professional. That's what I do for work, and this was heavy for me. I consider myself to be very, very strong, and so just a note of caution, if you're gonna use the sheet pan trick, make sure you got the core on and working if you're gonna lift heavy like that in the kitchen. And we're back with our cabbage, where I was definitely trying to decide how I wanted to cut this. I am not great at cutting cabbage, so if anyone has any tips, please share them in the comments. I feel like I have learned this, but I don't remember it or something. I don't know. It always seems so challenging for me. So please let me know if you have any cabbage cutting tips or tricks. Thank you in advance. I also want to thank you all so much for all of the comments and suggestions about parchment paper or using like baking mats, like Silpats. I really appreciate that, and that's what matters to me. It really matters to me to be able to create a community where people feel like they can share and their opinions are respected and valued, and I really appreciate that. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to share with me. I really appreciate it. It means so much to me, and thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Right, and back to cooking. So for what I'm doing here, I'm arranging my cabbage on my sheet pan, so the larger pieces are on the outside and the smaller pieces are on the inside. I know the ones on the inside won't get as well done, but the ones on the outside will take a little bit more of the heat. So that's how I'll arrange these here, and I ended up, yeah, really, really loving the way this turned out. So highly recommend. All right, so now that everybody's arranged in the sheet pan, I'm going to use the last remaining little wedge of my cabbage. I'm going to cut it up, dice it up, and save it for later. Preparing these for the oven means adding some olive oil. I love olive oil. I could talk more about different types of oils and also kind of dispelling some of the oil conspiracies that exist. Yeah, there's so much, y'all. And you may or may not know this already, but I have a master's degree in public health nutrition, so dispelling some of these, food fallacies really matters to me. And yeah, so I'll add olive oil and salt, and yeah, we'll get these into the oven. And actually, since I'm adding salt here, let me give you guys a little snippet of some like food fallacies. So for my food policy class in my master's program, food law and food policy, we would go over different marketing tactics that companies use to like pander to people about food fallacies. So the one that I presented on and talked about was, I won't name any names, but there's a company that markets their salt as non-GMO, so non-genetically modified. And my project, my presentation was about that salt doesn't have any genes, so there's nothing to genetically modify. So them putting a non-GMO label on their salt was just a marketing tactic. It's impossible to genetically modify salt because there's no genes. So that's just a tactic that a company would use in order to, to get you to pay more or buy this versus that. So there's a million of these. I could give you 100 more examples. I could go over some of the examples my classmates did too. But yeah, that's just one. So salt can't be genetically modified. There's no genes. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So I'm going to get my next set of parchment paper set up. I'm going to roast this chicken. I am going to cut my chicken in half, butterfly my chicken, so that so it's just a little thinner and a little crispy. So I'll definitely take some of the fat off, and anything that remains, I like a really lean cut of chicken here. So yep, I'll get those cut up and onto the sheet pan. And on the same note, I love talking about the stuff that I think, gosh, there's so much in myths about food and cooking, and like lobbying the food industry does. And it's really, like, the more that I learned about it, the more I just realized the more confused we are as consumers, the more money there is to be made. I think about that. I work in health and fitness, and the same thing is true for food too. Like, it's so confusing to understand, like, GMO, organic, not organic, pesticides. The list goes on and on and on. Supplements, diet soda, all this stuff. So there is money to be made when consumers are confused, and they do this on purpose. You all work way too hard for what you have. You deserve facts, not a fictitious sales pitch. I digress. So we'll add olive oil, salt, and pepper to these, and I'll keep it simple with the seasonings here because I know I'm going to add a sauce a little bit later. So keeping it simple for now. So hands washed. I know these are going into the oven, so that means something has to come out of the oven, which is perfect because my stuffed shells are done at this point. So I'm going to pull the Lone Ranger out first, and then I'll bring the other sheet pan of them out to follow. So now I've got my chicken in with my cabbage, and I'll set another timer. And look at these beauties. Oh my gosh, this was so delicious. Amazing. Lysol, because we had raw chicken on the counter, so y'all know the drill. Now I'll start on my oatmeal. I am using frozen blueberries here, so I'm going to put them into my pan first. I'm letting them cook down just for a minute to get a little jammy. And I'm also adding some chia seeds, so I'm going to let these get a little jammy all together. Once everything's cooked down for a second, I'm going to add in some hot water, and I'll give that a stir too. I'm also trying to deglaze the pan a bit here, so you can see me kind of scraping the bits off the side and getting it into the mixture. So yes, now it's time for the oats. So I let that cook for a bit too and get kind of a head start. So I'll add my oats in now. Lots of oats. Lots and lots of oats. We'll get those stirred in. I'll add some hot water. And as you guys know, I don't really measure much of anything, but I didn't measure my water here, but I always think about when I want my oatmeal to really be swimming. And you can always cook it down and like it'll thicken up, but I really hate when it's like dry or starts sticking to the bottom of the pan. So just a little side note, a little love note there for you. My oatmeal's going to continue to cook. I'm going to start making these squiggly knife cut noodles from Trader Joe's. They come with the sauce inside. These are incredible. I think I could eat them every day. Honestly, they're so delicious. And since this was a short week too, I wasn't sure how these noodles would keep for meal prep. So I was kind of experimenting to see if this would be a good meal prep meal, and I think that it was. It's just I just wasn't sure if these noodles would disintegrate, since I've learned that the hard way over time. Like, rice noodles don't tend to keep very well for meal prep in my experience. But these aren't rice noodles, so they're totally fine. So I'm taking the sauce packets out, getting the noodles set aside. I'm shaking the sauce packets up too, and I'll get them into the bowl. And then when the noodles are cooked, they'll go into the bowl. I'll come back over to my oatmeal. I'm waiting for my water to boil for my noodles. So since my oatmeal's all done, I'll portion it out and add it to my meal prep containers. Right, oatmeal's all done. I'm gonna start on my sauce. I'm using this miso paste from Trader Joe's. I'm kind of obsessed with it. So I'm gonna use miso paste here. This is a sauce that's going to go on my chicken and my cabbage. I'll get that in there first. The next ingredient I'll add is soy sauce. I prefer a low sodium soy sauce here. Use what you want. I just prefer that it's not as salty, or if I wanted to add more salt, I could, but then I have a little bit more control over the salt. So, yep, I just eyeballed it here. I'll definitely give it a little taste and see what else it needs. But I'll get that whisked together. Take that little taste, and oh yeah, I think this needs rice vinegar. That's definitely what I thought here. So I'll add some rice vinegar, also something I'm obsessed with. I have an incredible healthy cabbage, like rice vinegar, soy sauce recipe on my blog. That's really where I started with that in my head of, oh, I really like that sauce. So yeah. So I'm gonna get my cabbage out of the oven and I'm gonna get this sauce onto there. But yeah, look at how delicious. So happy. Everything's crispy and it's kind of hard to see because the cabbage is purple, but we got some color on there, which means things are caramelized and they're gonna taste incredible. Even better with the sauce on there. So now that my sauce is on there, I'm going to sprinkle some sesame seeds on here too, just for some more texture, some other color, just some pretty. I love a little sprinkle. So we'll get some sesame seeds on here now too. Right, cabbage going into the oven, chicken coming out of the oven because the chicken's now going to get this sauce added onto it as well. All right, chicken's all sauced up and going back into the oven. You can probably see on my face here that I'm excited because I know it's gonna taste delicious. So I get my timer set and on to the next thing. I forgot to film it, y'all. I'm so sorry. I added the carrots I cut up earlier into the boiling water some time ago. Just so I added the noodles once the carrots were tender because I just wanted to use one bowl. I was feeling I didn't want to dirty another dish. They will cook very quick. These noodles are fast. So I'm getting them in here, getting them under the water, and trying to stir them up as best I can. Like I said, those noodles will cook really quick. So I knew I could get these containers. They're finally cooled off. I'll get these containers onto the counter so we can get that beautiful money shot at the end for you all of all the food. If you were not taking a photo of this, then you could definitely just put them in the fridge. But here we are. It's time to get the chicken and cabbage out of the oven. The cabbage is all done, but the chicken I am going to turn over and add the sauce to the other side too. So I'll do that très vite. Quick. So I'll pop the chicken back into the oven for just a second, and then I'll also drain my noodle and carrot mix. Noodles are drained, and I've got my sauce in my bowl as a reminder. I'll just give it a little swirl. I'm gonna pour my hot noodles and carrots in here, and I'll give them a nice big toss with the tongs and get them portioned out into each container. Now that everybody's all stirred up, I'll add some of that remaining cabbage I had from earlier. All right, chicken's all set. I'm gonna get it cut up and portioned out into my containers. And that's a wrap. And yes, that last little bite of chicken was delicious. All right, so very last thing here, we're gonna sprinkle some of these sesame seeds on top, just to add a little more flavor, a little more texture. You know I love a fun topping. And yes, we're at the very end. Thank you all so much for watching, for commenting, for sharing, for asking questions. I want this to be a community where everyone feels like they're valued, they can ask questions, ask for advice, share advice with other people. So thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it, and I hope you have the most incredible week ahead of you.